This is the reason your child doubts themselves. My name is Edward Okoth. I'm the author of Bila Shaka, Living Without Doubt, and here's what I know. TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram are stealing your child's confidence and their motivation. How is this happening? For you to feel motivated, there's a chemical involved in your brain called dopamine. Every time you work towards a goal, a meaningful goal, dopamine is released in your brain and it makes you feel good. Dopamine is the same chemical released when you're watching TikTok, when you're watching YouTube, when you're scrolling on Instagram, and even when you're watching pornography. What's the problem with this? Dopamine, when released after going towards a meaningful goal, for example, when you go for a hard workout and dopamine is released at the end of the workout, it motivates you to go and do that hard thing again. So dopamine is what allows us and encourages us to go out into the world and to do hard things. Now, if you're getting instant dopamine at the touch of a button when you're watching TikTok and scrolling reels, and your brain is flooded with more dopamine that it knows what to do, it becomes a big problem. You find that your child or yourself are spending 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, even the whole night scrolling on TikTok and YouTube, flooding your brain with dopamine, flooding your brain with those chemicals that you didn't have to work hard for. What is the end result? It's that your dopamine receptors become completely ruined. When your dopamine receptors become completely ruined, suddenly life lacks motivation. It lacks color. This is where you find your teenager is feeling depressed. This is where you find your teenager is feeling doubtful of themselves. This is where you find your child starts to isolate and withdraw from the rest of the family and the rest of the world because their brain chemicals are no longer in balance. It is just like an addict. When someone is addicted to drugs like cocaine, it releases dopamine in their brain. Because the amount of dopamine being released is so much, they can't get it from normal activities. The same dopamine that you'd have gotten from having a conversation with your parents, you now can't get it having a conversation with anyone. You have to go back to your phone to watch TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, or pornography. So one of the ways you can know that your child is suffering from dopamine-induced depression, doubt, and isolation is that they no longer want to speak to people. They want to spend all their time in their room alone. They no longer want to engage in activities that usually made them happy. Things like hanging out with friends, sports, no longer interest them. Now, even for things that require a lot of effort to gain dopamine from, for example, studying from an exam and then passing the exam at the end of the studying period, this puts a lot of time between you beginning the activity and you receiving the reward for the activity. Because you'll study for a whole term just to receive dopamine at the end of the exam. If you've already trained your mind to receive dopamine instantly whenever you look at your phone, how are you going to sustain studying for weeks or months without releasing dopamine? It's impossible. So this is why we're seeing a doubt epidemic among the young people in our society. It's because there's too much free access to instant dopamine. I use TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram not because they're bad, because you're likely watching me on one of these platforms, but just to show you how the brain works. It's the same problem with a child who's using drugs. It's the same problem with a child who's addicted to pornography or an adult. It's the reason that I make this content, and it's the reason I wrote this book. If you feel like your child is going through some of these things, then it's highly likely you need to find a way to fix their confidence. That's why I created the confidence guide for parents, and it's linked in my bio. Thank you.